Educator Live. My name is Bill Stevens. I will be your host for today. So excited to have you all here, music educators, music students, anybody that's passionate about music and want to learn all kinds of super awesome tips and tricks. So today's live stream is really kind of special. In today's live stream, we will be interviewing Dr. Josh Brandon. And Dr. Brandon has been teaching for 16 years and has taught all levels elementary, secondary, and collegiate. He is currently director of bands at Loganville High School in Loganville, Georgia, where he has been for the past 6 years. Dr. Brandon's program has grown from about 46 members to over 120 members engaged in concert band, marching band, jazz band, winter guard, and all other chamber ensembles. In 2022, he was elected Teacher of the Year by his colleagues and runner up for the District Teacher of the Year. In today's live stream, he will discuss fanning the flame of your program, or rather, taking failing music programs and investing the resources necessary to get them back on track, which I'm sure a lot of people could use. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to go ahead and welcome Dr. Josh Brandon.
Good evening.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Great to have you on board. Um, this whole concept of bringing programs back to life is such an important one, especially after COVID. Before, let me keep myself from rambling. Let's find out more about you. Can you tell us about yourself?
Sure. I'm originally from Alabama. I grew up in Birmingham, which is kind of the upper middle part of the state, and I went to Jacksonville State University for my undergrad and was part of the band program there. I graduated in mid-year 2008, so I was in flux for a little while. Then from 2009 on, I've been in Georgia. I've taught in any and every kind of situation that you could think of, and I've during all that time I worked with the bands at the University of Georgia for 2 years while working on my doctorate. Most of my career has been with teaching younger students at especially middle school, where currently I'm a high school band director. I'm married. My wife is a recent COVID nurse. Now she is a school nurse, and
All
we have a
right.
6-year-old daughter who's in first grade. And so life's great. Life's very busy, but it's great.
Very good. Good. Keeping that young professional life going.
Yes,
By
sir.
the way, what do you play? What is
I'm a
your
French
major
horn player.
instrument? French horn. Oh, okay. Wow. The world needs more of those. All right. So let's get into it, man. So there's a lot of programs that really need help nowadays, especially after COVID. So can you kind of talk us through and kind of lead the discussion here on how you take failing music programs and invest the resources necessary to get them back on the right track?
Sure. My last two jobs I've had, I have followed. I inherited the program where the director before me, would admit that they had kind of given up. One director went through a major. Well, both of them went through a major life change, and I went through that too. And when my daughter was born and trying to navigate the mythical work life balance. But both directors just they just life got the better of them, and their and work suffered, and so both my previous two positions that I've had, that it was just told to me by that the person going out is like, hey, I'm just things are in a kind of in a rough place a little bit, and you're going to be up an uphill battle. um and for that, and especially nowadays too with COVID, we're still we're still facing the repercussions of the pandemic, and there's school systems near where I am where uh they were virtual to some degree, if not fully, for at least 18 to 24 months. And we're starting to, and at my level, at the high school level, we're starting to see that, the remnants of that. Um for me, being at the programs I've been in, um you have to go in with an open mind. And there's a lot of phenomenal programs here in Georgia, and um there's a lot of places that are not so great here in Georgia. And I think, and I'm near, the university that I got my doctorate degree in, and a lot of those students are from, kind of the metro Atlanta part of the state, where they come from these big programs that perform, um, maybe as high school kids at rather big venues like our state conference, or regional events. We're part of the Bands of America route. But then when they get to a situation where it's not all that glamorous, and it's just a constant uphill battle to really get the program back up and running. There, I feel, in my observation, there's not much of a they're not equipped to deal with that. And I think there's something to that. Like, going in those kind of programs where you can kind of turn it around and make it your own. You're able to kind of look back and, like, this is a track record I have, and not just inheriting something that you're riding on the coattails of your successor. And then you're kind of left with, well, what are we going to do now? Um, and so, and I say all that, like, my last two jobs, when I started, um, both places had a lot of potential, and in different ways. And whether it be resources, whether it be just there's a desire, there's a hunger there within the community, with the parents, with the administration. Um, there was a potential there, and that's something I think you one of the first things you have to recognize when you're going in these programs. And I call it fanning the flame, because when I was in scouts, one of the first things you learn is to build a fire. It's one of the first things you do before you go camping and all that. And you learn, you got to get the kindling, you got to get the tinder, and then you put all the big stuff, the fuel. You don't put the green stuff on the fire. You don't put pine straw on the fire. But of course, when you got a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds with matches and lighter fluid, what are the first thing we
Mhm.
do? We just put all the big stuff on, we douse it with lighter fluid, and it goes off for a minute, and then it's done. And then you just keep doing that, and the next thing you know, it's dark outside, and you're like, "Oh no!" And then you have to take several steps back, and that's what I think. When we go into these jobs, into these positions, we're built. We're you have to take that same approach of, like, you're building a fire is not, it doesn't just start at the bonfire, where you're getting the heat. It starts small, where you're having to nurture it, you're having to constantly watch over it and protect it from
Mhm.
wind and other things going on. um to where, like, where I am currently at my program now. um it's a roaring flame, and there's not a lot of, it's really, it's, to be honest, it's like, okay, now how do we, where do we go now? And that's kind of the
How do you build
question
on
that
it?
I'm at right now, personally and
Okay.
professionally, with my program.
So, going into these programs that that definitely need help. What is something? Just kind of add on to this. Where do you start? I mean, like, you kind of take a look at it. What is something? I mean, how would you say, "Hey, this is a program. This is what there is. These are the parents. These are the kids. This is the culture." Where do you go from there?
Well, I'm a firm believer that you have to first establish. You have to start with everything starts with relationship, and you have to really, especially being some like at the places that I've been where there's been neglect, there's been where everything and everyone is an afterthought, to where you come in, you're really having to um to painstakingly establish relationship and rapport, and I would argue with not just the kids and your parents but with your building.
Yeah.
Because your building is going to have, like at my current job that I'm at, the band program, the kids were just not looked favorably, because they couldn't get along with each other. There was just they just didn't really they weren't really part of the school, and
Oh
even
man.
so much so that like we still do it to this day, like like the marching band show shirt that has the theme and the
Yeah.
design. My kids, my first year, they I mean, like on a game day Friday, they wouldn't wear anything band related, and then like all of our ninth
Oh
graders
no.
that were new with me,
Yeah.
they when they would come in Friday wearing like, "Oh, I'm wearing my band shirt," and the older kids are like, "Why are you wearing
Well,
that?"
it's the culture. It's the
Yeah,
culture, man.
yeah,
If
mhm,
they don't have the culture, then they don't take pride in what they do. They don't,
mhm.
it's and you got to start. I mean, you got to start somewhere, and it's
And
going
I
to take time.
always treat the first year as an observational year, and I've done this not a long time, but a long enough to where, and I would tell, like in a high school situation, I would tell my older students, is like, I know the ins and outs of teaching, but I don't know how you guys do band. I don't know what your school thinks or see how they see the band program. And so, and that's one thing I would advise a lot of people that are going into a situation to, whether it be a good situation or bad situation, just to kind of to ride out and see. And I always, every year or every job I would have a notebook of things of, okay, at this time of the year, there's some big pep rally that they do, and the band's not playing at it. And I
What?
don't I don't make a fuss or stink about it. I don't say, whatever. I just make an observation, and then as the next year comes around, I look at that and it's like, okay, I can't realistically do all of this and change everything,
Yeah.
but I can tackle a little bit of time. Now, I say all of that, I'm going to go ahead and contradict myself and be hypocritical.
Okay.
At
Go
my
for it.
last job, um, at my current job that I'm at, I was fortunate enough for 2 summers that I taught band camp at the school. So my job before this, I was commuting an hour away, to work from where I was, and then this my current school is about 20 minutes from my house, and so the director, um, had heard, the previous director had heard of me, and I told her, it's like, well, I'm free. I'm done with my high school, the high school I feed into their camp, so I can help out. Um, and so I had the fortune, I was able to get a firsthand glance and to see, just from like being like just a band camp instructor, to see how things were done. And then just, she and I were friends to for to an extent, and then would tell me all the things that were going on with the season. So when I got hired, I kind of had an idea of the things that were not working, and that were going well, to where I didn't make huge changes, but it was really the changes of how we, just of how we set drill, how we learn music, those kind of things, and not so much like big systematic, like, okay, you're used to doing band camp for 3 days, we're going to do it for 2 weeks. you know, I kept a lot of that the same, but we just changed the approach of how we did it. And I had a lot of pushback from older kids, as like, this isn't what we're used to, this isn't how we do it. And I had to tell them up front, and I was like, well, guys, I'll just be real. Like I've worked with successful band programs, both as at my current role and as a staff member, and you're not successful at what you do, and you haven't been. And it's like, and I'm not telling you that is to be mean. It's just the reality, and y'all know it. And it's like, you tell you what, when we have our first contest, and if it's not successful, um, we'll go back to, I'll let y'all run it how you want, and I'll go with it. And our first competition that year, the band for the first time in 12 years had gotten all superiors at our first competition. It
Wow.
was unheard of
Wow.
for that time. And so um, it just, with that rare occurrence, I would tell everyone else. And I was talking to, actually today we had our state music ed conference the last couple of days. I was talking to a young director, and just, it's like, you can't, you have to just give a lot of time and patience with these changes. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
if you have a group that hasn't gone to festival, we call it LGPE here. I know Alabama calls it MPA, and Florida does too. But if you have a group that hasn't gone to festival in 2, 3, 4 years, like maybe since the pandemic, or
Mhm.
maybe a little bit before, um, this may not be the year that you're gonna like do a gung ho challenging program, and you're gonna have the expectation you're gonna get all ones on a page. This may be the year that maybe you go, but it's going for the experience, so that
Yeah.
the kids are just that they're used to, like, this is part of who we are. This is part of our culture, what we do. And this is, and not stressing about the results, but just being glad that you got them there
Yeah.
to that
And
moment.
ultimately, you want them that experience, you want them to have a successful experience, whether it's,
Sure,
a superior or not. They can still tell if, they played well, maybe they got an excellent, or maybe, sight reading went well or something like that.
sure.
Okay. All right. Please keep on. Tell me more. Tell me more. How do we get this program to blossom from almost nothingness? Because
Well,
I know I've had challenges in the past, and
mm,
I've done a lot of trial and error. Love to hear what you have to say.
so in my first year at my current job, like I said, I treated it as kind of a semi observational, and just kind of made note of things of, that how they do band, and how the band program is viewed. And um and then at that point, as the school year ended, and I would typically, like, my first few years, would select 3 to 5 goals, and just make that, like, these are the things that I'm going to chase after. And they weren't necessarily musical goals, or, I want my band to play at this level and to get this rating, but it was just like things I want to implement.
Okay.
And so, like, one year, the students were, they one of the things is, the students were, they felt they weren't really recognized for the hard work they did. Um, that it was just all like, you did your job, go home.
Yeah.
And so, and I'd said, okay, well, what do you think? What should we do? And I kind of put it back on, and I still did this to this day. It's like, well, what do you think we should do? And they were like, well, we should, I don't know, recognize them somehow, and you know, doing something like that. And so, and then we came up with, we do for our fall semester for marching band, because majority of kids that I see every day are in that group. We do a rookie of the week, a vet of the week, and a section of the week. And this, in our rookie and vet of the week, they get, we put their picture on our social media channels, and the school will do it as well. Like, hey,
Oh,
these are the
cool.
marching band kids of the week or whatever. And then they get like a free meal on us with our concession stand on a Friday night.
Oh, okay. So you guys have concessions. That I'm sure that helps.
And but we also, but with those kids too, we, because I wanted the teacher, I wanted our faculty to be connected with our band program.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so those kids, it can be a middle school teacher they've had, or someone at the high school. It could be a coach, it could be a custodian or administrator. They choose like a staff member, and then I make it I make it in our budget that we buy special T-shirts for them, and the kid
Okay.
gives it to him. It's like, hey, I chose you as teacher of the week, and then we make a big deal out of that
Oh,
too.
okay.
And so and just those little things of celebrating the kids and celebrating the hard work. Like they know, like on Thursday practice, that we all get on a 50 and we're gonna do a drum roll all together 3 times, and that's going to be great. And so like those kind of things, like each year, they were all taken down from year one being at the
Okay.
school, and I would just kind of like a little bit at a time, because and my wife is someone who she's the very ambitious, like, I've got these 20 goals I'm going to do for 2021, or 21 goals for year 2021. And for me, I just try to keep it simple, and just try to keep it like your three, maybe no more than 5 things to do. And we do something, and then, like I was saying earlier, like that's the fall and the spring, we do something completely different.
Mhm.
And we try to, it's the same kind of idea, but it's for all of our concert band classes. And we try to highlight the kids that are not in marching band, that just do concert band, because maybe they play a sport, you know. And that's kind of how that stuff got it. It was just a conversation with the kid. It's like, I just don't feel recognized for, we don't get recognized for the good things that we do. Um, I think having, and for me at my current job, like I had it's towards the end of the year, you have that summative conference or evaluation with your administrator or your
Administrators,
principal.
yeah.
And I always like I would always typically just have it with my administrator, but I would also request with my principal. Um, and I would, and if you're going to do that, first, don't make it like hey, like stop by in the hallways, like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? Be
Make it
intentional,
like a
and
real thing.
be
A
intentional, yeah,
formal
and
meeting.
like,
Yep.
yeah, and just reach and just say like, hey, I'd like to come by your office. I want to just to get your what you think is how you think things are going, and that kind of thing. And I did that my first year, and he and we were able to have open dialogue, and I invited our athletic director, because I work a lot with him in the fall. And that started a whole conversation of other things, like these are the things that, not that you're not doing well, but we would love to see it,
Yeah.
see it fruition, if it can happen. And that was one of the things, like, I brought up. I was like, at my last job, we were able to do it every year, because like, we were middle school, but we went to Orlando every year. And
Oh, nice.
that was a huge part of my band experience. And these kids have not done a trip ever, and they don't even, they've probably never been out of state. I
Oh,
was like, I
no.
want to take them to Orlando and go to Universal Studios in 2020.
Yeah.
And we did, right as the world ended.
Oh, well, at least you got it once.
Yeah,
And
so we yeah,
that
sorry.
serves as a motivator, too, as, from the beginning year all the way through, if they know they're gonna be doing that, to stay eligible. And yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's a great idea. Plus, it makes them realize that there's more than this little part of your town kinda thing. The
yeah.
music world expands so much more, and there's so much more to experience.
Well,
Alright.
and it puts them too, instead of like, and I tell them, like, we're getting ready to go to Universal our third time, and we do the parade around the park. And as annoying as it is for me, as like, okay, I got to worry about getting equipment, uniforms there. I know kid's going to forget something, as annoying as it is, like, when kids come back and they've gone on that trip, they've always said, man, that was just like, that
Oh,
was
yeah, it's fun.
that was the best. Like, I did, prom was okay, this was okay, but like band trip, that was the best. And so it
Yeah.
makes it worth it. And so, having those kind of conversations with your admin about, and after you're, going into your second year, and then telling your admin, like, look, if this is what you want, this is what, this is what we need. And I'm having, and in my current situation, like, I'm starting that process now, because our program is at a unique place of, like, we can go to a whole other level if we wanted to, or we can be complacent and stay where we are. And I'm starting to have those conversations of, like, this is what I want, and if this is what you want, then I need to lower my expectations, or get you to come up to me, or meet somewhere in the middle. But I would say, whether going to any situation, like, you just have to have time and patience with any job. And it just, because you can't turn over a program overnight. You can't reinvent the culture, and the buy-in, in just a week, in just a couple of months. It takes, and I will say this, like, the numbers I had heard when I was teaching years, when I first started, when I was teaching middle school, it's like,
Mhm.
just give it that 4 years. That fourth year is going to be amazing. And then, when I got to high school, a buddy of mine was like, you just got to give it 5, maybe 6 years. And there's some truth in that. There's
Yeah.
some truth in that.
Uh,
Like, you have to really, um, and I feel like, if you're gonna, unless it's just a horrible situation, that you're run off by the principal, I just tell people, as much as possible, try to dig in, and try to, you know, to where you can have a track record of, like, okay, I moved the program to this place to where we were able to do these things. Um, and it's hard to say that I know, to some people, because I know friends of mine that are in situations that, um not necessarily the best situation at all. Like, they have an administrator that just doesn't value, um what they bring to the table, what the program brings to the table. They try to, they there's all these, just administrative type things that come up with, like,
mhm.
we're gonna, that get in the way of the band program being successful. Those kind of things, like, you have to just make that decision for yourself.
If
um
if if I could add on something,
sure.
you're completely right with all that, and I've noticed in some schools it's more true than others. Sometimes you have to deal with not only the band culture that you're given, but also the culture of your admin, or the culture of your teachers,
Mhm.
like you mentioned before. And so not only do you have to educate your kids and have that relationship with them, but you have to educate your administrators. And I'll be honest, you know, I've I when I was younger, my administrators kept me accountable, and they still do, but at a different degree, because there's that professionalism, and I also try to hold them accountable. So if I'm asking them to do something, I also help educate them, and I also say, how can this help the rest of the school, because they're thinking, big picture. And as a director, you're thinking big picture for your program, and you're trying to motivate things. And so it's, one of the wise words I got when I was younger was, programs build on success. It doesn't mean you have to have a 100-member person band at the beginning, but take those kids that you personally have developed, and make them successful, and advertise that every single time you can. And the kids love that. And I don't know if that's your experience, but whenever I'm like a cheerleader for them, and they love it.
Yeah, and you have to, and that's the thing too, when we're talking about success and the successful program. For my admin, that's seeing a lot of them in kids involved, and whether it be
Mhm.
day to day, like in a class, or, like, we started our, jazz band back up,
Oh, good.
earlier this past week. And I have 45 kids doing jazz band, all from flute, clarinet, French. It's like a
You
concert
got
band,
everything.
but I was like, it's like we're gonna run with it and embrace it. And my one of my admin came by, he just stopped. He was just like, I just was enthralled in what y'all were doing, and it was like, had full intentions of going home, and then I stopped for 10 minutes to listen.
Now here's your jazz
Um,
band. Do you do it as a club or a class?
I do it as a club, so we're on a 4x4 block schedule at
Okay.
my school. So if you're not familiar with that, the kids basically have 8 classes a year. They
Okay.
take 4 August through December, and then 4 others, January through May. So and then so as a teacher, you teach 3 periods, and then you have a planning period. So um it's an after we just do one day after school. I used to do before, you know, my before when my daughter was very, very like a toddler still, I would do a couple days a week, but now I do one day a week. And we just make it a kind of a honestly, we just make it kind of fun. Like we have
Yeah.
I call it the mass band, jazz band, and then we
Okay.
have a combo group that's, some of my advanced players that they're kind of they're not really jazz musicians, but they really want to learn jazz. And so we're and with that group, we're just, it's just about, having fun. That's really all
Yeah.
it's saying. Just another outlet for them to make music, and make music together and just be with their friends.
Well, I know from experience that peers and students recruit students
Mm,
rather than just programs. It's really that relationship again, starting from what we started in the beginning.
mhm.
So, um, and have you ever? Here's a question: have you ever considered? We have a jazz band too. We've done something very similar. It's a middle school, mind you. So it. I mean, we never excluded anybody. We always accept everybody. Um, do you ever invite other staff members that play?
I do.
Or have you considered that?
Our SRO, or our former SRO, he actually plays guitar, electric guitar, and he plays with a blues band, and
Oh, okay.
he's the Atlanta blues chapter president or something. He's a big wig in the state, and so he's played with us a couple times. And I have a biology teacher who he was in the band years ago. He's a drummer, and he's like, I'd like to
Okay.
play with you guys. So and then we're doing something for our spring concert, kind of in the same vein. We're like, we have a lot of faculty members that are band kid or our former band kids, and they've expressed like, I just would really like to play,
Yeah.
a song or something. I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
just dust that thing off at home and bring it on.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try that for we do like a big spring pops concert with
Oh,
our
good.
my whole program combined, and just we do some, grade 3, grade 4, literature, and just, we do a couple fun things, and um
Just
just a
make it
very
really interesting for everybody.
yeah. Mhm.
Good, good. Awesome. So, you were talking before, between you and me, you have, a business. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yes, so I have I do student leadership training, or I'm starting to. My business is called Fuse Leadership Initiative, and the name of that has come from, my own program. We About 2 years ago, I was finishing up my educational leadership um, certification. I guess that would be the right word to
Okay.
call it. And so I scored really low on mission, vision, and long-term planning, or long-term goals.
Okay.
And I was like, and it made sense, because there's a lot of things I know for me personally I have in my head that just doesn't come out. And I've been more really intentional with that. And so I started at the micro level with my own program, and with my leadership team 2 years ago. we just started kind of identifying core beliefs that what are the things that are keeping you in band, and then and then the same question, like, what about your friends?
Mhm.
And so through all of the, and we I chose like over 200 words, and they selected all of them, and then we kind of made like those, I don't know if you've seen like the word pictures
Oh,
where
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
the
the
big, like the
word
more words
wall,
chosen, the bigger the
the
word
bigger
is.
it is.
Yeah, and so the three of those words, which are part of Fuse, the acronym, are were family, unity, and excellence. And
Okay,
so the S, and this is a funny word. This is one of those college words, sedulous.
okay.
That kind of came out of
I gotta
when
ask, what does that mean?
it is a high form of diligence. It's diligence with persistence. That's the
Okay.
best way to
Diligence
really
with
describe that
persistence.
word. And that word that came into play, um, because there was a need. The leaders at the time, we were talking about, like band camp is great. Going the first couple football games is great, but when it's September, we start school in
Mhm.
August, and when it's
Okay.
September, going in October, it's like, why are we still doing this? Why are we still doing the same 3 to 4 drill moves? Why are we still doing the same show? Can we not change it? And so a lot of the attention to detail and the work ethic would just go down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there's
And
just that definite lull.
yeah, and so we saw that need, and so we I put that in there for part of it, and that it made like a catchy little acronym that the kids could remember. So and then last year, we my that was this was one of my goals, was like, okay, we came up with the acronym, we mentioned it from time to time in our 2022 season, 2023 season, we're gonna like just it's going to be part of the fabric of who we are. And so and a lot of that started with our I do a training with my student leaders before camp, and we go over practical things. We did a lot of things with Fuse, and then during camp, the first few days, rather than doing full band at the end of the day, we would basically do character education. And with breaking it down, like family, we tied it to belonging, because it's a big thing, a big human need that we all have,
Yeah.
is wanting to know that we belong somewhere, whether it be our own family, at work, at what we do. And then with unity, we kind of spin it around conflict, and because there's going to be conflict, and when you're especially when you're getting a bunch of 13 to 17-year-olds that see life very differently, and they come from, especially my group is the most diverse group at the school, where you have kids from all walks of life. They identify differently, they see the world through different lenses than I do. And then with the diligence and the sedulous part, we just really focus on, like, it's about the small things, it's about falling back on what and not rising to the occasion of what you're doing. And then doing all of that, you're gonna achieve excellence. It doesn't matter, the trophies or whatever. If you're doing all of those, if you're committing to all of those things, the results that you want will matter. And this is the first year in a long, long time, for the program, that we of all of our competitions, the students they earned straight superior ratings at
That's
both
awesome.
of their and it's impressive, for especially the show that we did, and the demands for that show. And so so doing all of that, I've always been interested in doing, working on leadership topics, and more and more I was doing my own ed leadership certification. I was like, I really like that side of it. And um, and I do have some aspirations of maybe going to administration. I don't know, but I do. I just feel like the Lord is pushing me in this direction of
Yeah.
working with student leaders. And And just something I'm real excited about and passionate about. And I'm one of the big spins I'm offering with doing student leadership is I have multiple I don't know if you want to call them packages or whatever available, but one of the things I'm offering is to doing a 30 to 60-day meetup with your student leaders after band camp when
Okay.
you're in the grind of like, okay, like how are things going, what's going well, what's not going well, and doing that also for the director and their staff. And and I'm getting into also like doing life coaching and career coaching for directors that because sometimes it's just we're on our own little island. Like we have a department, um like and if you're like my school, like the fine arts department is you, the chorus teacher, and the drama teacher, maybe orchestra at some places. Um but even then, like I mean, we're all doing something different, and we
Yep.
all
Yeah,
have
that's
our
true.
different struggles, and we're on our own island. And um and just having I have a career coach. I have two career coaches that have that I talk to and that pour into me, so that I can pour into other people. And so um, I've just launched it earlier this week, in time for our state music ed conference, and just you know hoping we'll see what happens with it. I'm excited about it.
Good.
It's gonna be good,
Oh,
I
it
think.
should be really exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
especially after your conference. I mean, I don't know about you, but conferences always bump me up, get me excited.
Yes. Yes.
So, do you have a website for this educational leadership and coaching situation?
Yes. It is, I believe, fuseleadership.org. I have a Facebook page, an Instagram page. Facebook page is Fuse Leadership Initiative. And
Okay,
on there
and
it has the website and all that stuff.
we'll put this in the description as well.
Okay.
Okay, so Facebook, your leadership page, and did you say a third one?
Instagram.
Instagram. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Super. We'll go ahead and put that in.
Yes, sir.
Um, we're trying to wrap things up a little bit. Are there any last words of wisdom you'd like to share with us?
Um, it's tough out there. I know we're all trying to figure out the landscape of things, and I know that um, kids these days can be tough and challenging, and but you have to keep the perspective, and I try to keep this perspective that um, sometimes you have the power to be the only person in their day to speak kindness and love to them.
That's very true.
And that's something I'm as a fairly new dad still. I is something like I just I when I've just since my life has changed in that way, like it's really changed my interaction. And I just really take that seriously with my students, because you can have all these great ideas of turning a program around, and these great means and ways of getting budgeting that you need, and or getting performance opportunities. But the kids, if they don't know, if they don't feel like that you care about them, or want a relationship with them, it doesn't matter. And just really, I would encourage directors, any music educator or educators in general, take the time to get to know the people in front of you, because and I have to remind myself that my thing is not the most important thing in their life, and sometimes they got bigger things going on, and I have to put aside my ego and my desire of like, we got to get through this day. Sometimes
Yep.
their life gets
Very
in the
true.
way, and you just got to be there for them. So
Very wise. Very wise. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Josh Brandon, for joining us. And everyone, thank you for watching. Have a great day and keep it going. And see you next time. All right.